Bullshit.
The No BS Marketing Show is brought to you by Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing. Free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more online at laramores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich of Mass Solutions. Our guests today are John Chamberlin and Rachael Rennebeck, co-hosts of the Jag-Off podcast, a podcast all about the cool things going on in Pittsburgh. But first, let's hit the bullseye. Let's see if this one catches your attention as much as the last one. John and Rachael like the It's Fine one. Our No BS marketing research shows that most companies are neglecting two key target audiences for one big reason. First, the reason, then the two key target markets. Who you market to is different than who you sell to. Let me say that again. Who you market to is different than who you sell to. Think about it. Many business to consumer, B2C, and business to business, B2B companies learn about those companies from people talking about those companies. So the customers learn about the companies from talking to other people about those companies. Now, it's easy to say word of mouth is the best advertising. Duh. Like, that's obvious and kind of bullshit to even say. That's like saying water is good for humans. Word of mouth is the best form of advertising, of course. But what I'm talking about is the people who you can reach and influence. The two key target markets that most companies don't treat the same way they do their other key target markets. And companies don't treat them as target markets because companies don't realize that who they market to is different than who they sell to. Those two key target markets are referral sources and employees. When I say referral sources, many people think of healthcare companies. We work a lot in the healthcare space, having been a chief marketing officer for large healthcare institutions. But I'm talking about how all companies have referral sources, and they matter so much more today than ever before. In episode 1, John closed up with how he learned social media and that it's the same forms of communication, it's just a different medium. Well, the same thing happens when we're talking about referral sources. It matters so much more about referral sources now because they can be done online and you can read reviews for both B2B and B2C. And you can see Glassdoor to see whether you want to work somewhere. Companies don't realize that they have to make referral sources a key target market. One of our clients who went out and we started doing this marketing intel and helping them understand their customer opportunity, we asked them if we could talk to some referral sources. And when we did, we kept hearing things like, I used to refer to them, but, and I would say, well, tell us, what do you mean, but? And they would say, but I never knew what happened once I referred it to them. I never knew whether they closed the business or not. Or worse, I didn't get a thank you, a proper thank you. So you have to treat referral sources as a key target market. Employees, a lot of people say, yeah, we see employees as a key target market, but they really don't. They're de facto members of your marketing team. So you need to market to them as if they were customers. And this agitates my clients when they say, like, wait a minute, we're already paying them. We're doing benefits. We got this pool table, ping pong table. We're doing all this stuff. We're giving them the time off they want. We're recognizing them. But you have to treat them just like you do your other target markets, your customer markets. You have to build a targeted employee plan. We call it internal cultural messaging, telling your story, your why to your employees so that Department A employees know what Department B does and so forth down the line. So who you market to is different than who you sell to because there are two key target audiences that you don't really sell to, but you still have to market to, and they're referral sources and employees. I hope that helps you to hit the bullseye. Our guests today are John Chamberlin and Rachael Rennebeck, co-hosts of the Jag-Off podcast, a podcast all about the cool stuff going on here in our great city. In addition, John and Rachael are marketing partners at Jag-Off Media, LLC. From creating a Pittsburgh Willy Wonka parody with Tyler Kennedy as Willy Wonkowski, to creating Juju Claus for Juju Smith-Schuster to raise funds for the Children's Homeless Education Fund, John and Rachael always look for ways to have fun, but not be jag-offs. And I'll tell you, that first episode was great. They talked about how they started, the blog started with John. He was vulnerable and gave a lot of the stories about his past, about how a couple bad breaks, and he turned that adversity into a positive multiple times, started the blog. It starts getting traction because he took the time to learn social media, which is a really important thing because a lot of people that are Gen Xers and Boomers just ignore it or just half-ass it instead of spending the time learning it and saying, okay, I've spent 10, 12, 15 hours on Twitter, and I don't think I'm going to use that. I've spent 18 hours on LinkedIn, and I am going to use that. Whichever one you choose one you're good at, but learn them yourself instead of just saying, I'm going to pay someone $1,200 to do all of our social media and expect them to actually do something good. This is what we run up against. We go in and try to sell a solution, a marketing solution of understanding your customer opportunity, doing marketing research, doing messaging, doing target market segmentation. And they say, I just want to get my posting done for $1,000. And we just kind of chuckle and say, yeah, in about a year, you're going to be mad and you're going to think social media sucks when it doesn't. So you guys gave a lot of great stuff, and I'm really excited to go into part 2 as you elaborate on the social media stuff and tell me how that grew. You said you learned it and you saw what worked. Tell us what worked and how it's grown, because it's been a big success for you.
It has, and again, part of it was nomenclature, and part of it was, this is a real story in that, when the Sandusky stuff hit at Penn State, I typically would post, silly things. Again, on the blog, it's people who don't know how to park. It's people, a dumb criminal, a bad politician, whatever it might be. And people send me pictures of somebody who doesn't know how to park, or somebody in the grocery store line with 15, items only with 25 items. So we post things like that. Or it's
headlines.
Headline
it's checking
stories,
the news to kind of see
like
what's crazy. Yeah.
So, obviously that was part of the news. So that day I kind of took it and I made this really long, which I thought it was kind of funny, and I kind of poke at it as far as Jagoff. So on the Facebook page one night, I said, boy, wait until tomorrow's blog. All these Penn States, whatever it was about Jagoffs at Penn State, basically referring to the Sandusky thing. And the comments started coming through like, we're unfollowing you. What are you doing? And I thought, holy smokes, what's happening here? And it was really a milestone in the persona of the blog. Because what they said was, we're unfollowing you because you do silly stuff. You don't do this serious stuff. And we don't want to read your stuff if you're going to write about this. We get enough of that. So it really was like, wow. And so I literally went and backed that blog out, never posted it, and wrote something else for the next day. But for me, it was getting your hands dirty, learning it. And it was listening to the audience, right? What does the audience want and what don't they want? And I've had folks tell me that ever since then, is that, your blog takes me away from all this. Whatever side of the political line you're on, it's tough. But in the meantime, how do you keep finding silly stuff to write with all this mess? So it's kind of nice. And I think that's the voice, the same persona that we've taken to the podcast, where, again, you may come on and you may have certain political views. You may come on and be a Hall of Fame football player or hockey player, whatever it is. But we're not asking you about that. We're dorks, and we're going to ask you dorky questions. And that's become the brand. And
we often have dealt with, because we deal with so many athletes, especially, and not only that, the guests who John has lined up are obviously pretty good guests as well. And we often make sure that blaring question that you assume is going to be asked is absolutely not the question. So, for instance, when the whole NFL was taking the stance on the take a knee, don't take a knee, do you remember that was like, it was a rookie signing. And again, TSE said, softball questions. And we said, the last thing we want to do is engage all these people who are here to see these rookies, and say, what is your take on that? The first thing you learn in journalism is that you don't insert your opinion. So I think that's something that we've kind of used as a motto, that it doesn't matter what we think. We're there to kind of lighten it up.
A lot of journalists today forgot that.
Completely. And it's funny, I'm sitting here listening to him saying both sides. Yeah. And it's a disgrace at this point, to be honest. Yeah, really because the way and I'm not old, but when you think about what you're taught and how it was supposed to be, it is just so, it's a discredit.
It is a disgrace, and it's disheartening if you're a true writer or if you came up doing the journalistic stuff, because you just see that it's prevalent on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how the thing has evolved. And again, just getting my hands dirty, making mistakes like that, or almost making mistakes like that.
How many people unfollowed you percentage-wise just from the tease when you said tomorrow we're going to do this?
Because I got on there quickly and did a little bit of damage control. I said, okay, we're taking down the blog. I've heard you. I messaged each one of the people and said, I've heard you loud and clear. Please don't unfollow. I'm not going to put the blog up tomorrow. So I don't know that I assessed how many unfollowed, but every day there's always 10 new followers and 2 less followers, whatever it's going to be. But I think the way I handled it, quite honestly, as far as reaching out to those people personally, posting something publicly, as well as reaching out to the ones who are the most vocal, probably bode very well for the brand, because those people did not unfollow. They continue to follow it 6 years later.
And, by the same token, some things you can't, again, social media is how you use it, right? It's the tool. Some people hex it and say it's terrible, and all it is to voice your political opinion or to have, a one-sided discussion, which untrue. It's completely the resource that you use. You're the vehicle driver, right? And it's how you position it that works. And I know there was a time we were driving back from I don't know where, and John posts a question every day, silly, what's a good example? Like,
like
I don't know.
favorite pizza.
Favorite jelly bean, nonsense at certain time every day. And whatever question you had posed, it could have been taken a different way and somebody was coming on and bashing. You can't always control that, right? And if you're in the midst of your day, you don't know how many comments have been posted at that point because you're not looking at your notifications. And I happened to see a notification come up and he said, get on there immediately and make sure that you say, this is not what we build our brand around. This is not what we want to see. I mean, and it wasn't like God knows what, but it was just sad on how some people will use a vehicle in the wrong way. But there's some ways you just can't stop
We
it.
certainly had to do that on the blog. And I sometimes get a guest blogger. So comedians will write guest blogs. And we had a blogger about, it's always about jagoffs. So movie jagoffs, who eats too much, who talks on their phone, whatever. Nice blog written by a local comedian. And it was slated for the next day. And it was the day that the mass shooting the movie theater happened in Colorado, I think it was, So you have to be ready to take that down. We certainly couldn't post that. But there have been so many learning points. And just the Hawaii thing that we talked about earlier, in that they sent me notes and I had T-shirts that said, don't be a jagoff. And I was like, that was kind of cool that they helped me. I sent them T-shirts by surprise to their offices in Hawaii. And one day I'm on Twitter, still trying to figure it out because it's the first year. And all of a sudden I'm getting all these tweets hitting me. I'm like, what is going on? And it's these people at this Hawaii social media summit holding up my T-shirt. And the ladies from Wahine Media are telling, we built this relationship. We don't even know what a jagoff is, but there's this shirt. And we're so happy to have gotten this shirt from this guy we don't even know thousands of miles away. And for me, it's like, wow, look at that. And so it gained followers because eventually when I went to speak there were no doubt people from Pittsburgh, and they're like, hey, we know the word jagoff, that kind of thing. And they live in Hawaii. So it was kind of cool. But your question was, how has it evolved? I think the persona of the blog and again, the podcast has come from doing good things and just learning and knowing how. I think both of us are really good at, if we get ourselves in a tough situation that we know, or something has gone awry, we know how to kind of fix it fairly well. Even in the middle of an interview, if it goes sideways, we kind of know how to read.
We did it not too long ago with a band. We try to have some kind of musical influence on every episode, and we had they were younger-ish, right? But came on, do you remember? And we were at we were doing the ghost hunt.
Oh, the ghost hunt, right.
At Arsenal Middle School. And great guests, and some really good historian talking. And then we had somebody who was a medium, and then we had this band, and the band was totally not engaged in what we were talking about at all.
You're old people.
We saw the thought bubbles. It was just like, we're so not connected to you right now. And I was just watching their facial expressions, and finally I just called them out on it, remember? And we hurried up and we changed subjects, and it ended up being a decent interview. So I think it's just kind of reading, engaging your crowd, as you know, for marketing. So
absolutely.
And as well as I'm sure you give advice to your marketing clients, that's what you have to do. You put it out there, you kind of launch and learn. Yeah. You certainly plan, you launch and learn, but you can't walk away from that post and expect that it's going to do something. You still have to keep massaging it. Same thing as you float a marketing campaign out there. You have to keep your fingers on it, maneuver it just a little bit here, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. And, again, nothing's different these days that have been for thousands of years, right? Rules of engagement. It's just the manner in which the medium in which we're using at this point.
Now, John, I don't need to hear specifics. I'm not being completely nosy. I just want to ask, you mentioned that when you did the blog, you really weren't able to monetize that. So how long were you doing all this stuff without really generating much?
Well, until Rachael came. No,
that was a good segue.
I have to tell you that, and I will admit this, I'm a terrible person at asking people for money. And so I did have people say to me, you need to monetize this. You need to monetize this. So the blog was literally up for 5 years of it being sort of a side gig of getting you to do cool things.
Was this while you were still at Allpack?
No, that was the blog is totally.
So what were you doing?
So I do marketing in the medical field, a little bit of marketing, a little bit consulting in the EMS, helicopter and ambulance industry.
Okay.
So that's what I was doing. And this is like my midlife crisis. This is my Mustang. This blog is my Mustang. And I got to do cool things. I mean, so I'm thinking, well, I'm okay with that. I got to interview Garth Brooks. Who else got to do that, right? And then I started thinking, yeah. What happened is the Porch Tour, the Port Authority of Allegheny County sponsored the first one. And I started getting calls saying, you either are the smartest guy or the dumbest guy, but how did you get the Port Authority to recognize a podcast, that medium as a sponsor? And they said, so either they have way too much money to waste or they see something. I go, well, I'll take the second one because I think they're smart. And they did. They were recognizing it. But that's when it started to get kind of put on the map. And then, quite honestly, well, we work really good at marketing and we work really good at the podcast. The one thing I'm not good is asking for money and closing the deal. And Rachael is super good at that. And she's like I'm not trying to make a Rachael fest here, but she's like the human version of LinkedIn. It's always like this person, this thing, whoop, connect them.
It's just collaboration.
And it just kind of happens. And so when she came on in the Pittsburgh podcast, basically we were trying to figure out how do we make money. It was like, well, why aren't we asking them for this? Why are you doing this for free? I go, I don't know. So then we ask for a couple bucks and they give us a couple of bucks. The next person says, well, they gave you a couple of bucks. I should probably give you a couple of bucks. And it just started snowballing. And now I can't say that we literally have a business plan, but we do have a plan on how to generate money and engage people on how to generate money.
Do you still do the EMS marketing work, or
do some of it? Yeah, it's part of under you Jagoff Media. We do some EMS marketing.
Which you should see those faces when you Jagoff Media is
when we're talking to somebody in Houston, they go, "What is the Jagoff? Is this okay to say?"
For the longest time, we were using different email addresses because we have multiple.
Our 1099 form comes through. They're like, "We're not a little nervous about this." What you?
They handled it really well, though. Yeah.
But so
isn't it amazing how sensitive people are?
It is.
Same with this. We have the $, the hashtag, the exclamation point, and we still get people say, like, I don't want to be my picture in front of that.
Yes.
And I want to say, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, you put the word bull in front of shit, and it's suddenly way worse.
Yes.
I mean, I know it is more dramatic of a phrase, but it's the word bull.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
I've had guests be uncomfortable with
Is that
it.
right? Yeah.
Then I've had guests say to me, well, I'm afraid to come on because you're just going to call me out. And I say all the time, the show's about leadership and communication. It's talking about when you were not a BSer or what you learned from being a BSer that can help others. And people go, wow, isn't BSing just like overselling? And I'm like, well, no, it's just being less authentic. And, so I share your pain is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think we're kind of lucky in that some institutions, like we've asked multiple times, every year the Harlem Globetrotters, we ask for an interview because they do the radio tour here. They're like, well, I don't know. In the meantime, a very family-oriented business like the Gateway Clipper Fleet is like, yeah, let's have at it. So their captain came on with one of their interviews and I blew the horn and the captain's thing, he says, don't blow the horn, you Jagoff, And I think one of the things, if we could pat ourselves on the back one way, is because of our interview style, because of the persona of the blog, we've warmed up. We've kind of greased the skids on the word Jagoff at this point.
Yeah.
Because Pittsburghers really do use it in 3 different ways. At least when I grew up, I didn't use it in my family, but my friends who own a restaurant where I grew up, their mom always said, hey, how you doing, you Jagoff? Like she meant it literally as a term of endearment. But if you walked out on the check, she'd say that Jagoff walked out on the check. So she had 2 different ways to use it. And, in Pittsburgh, I think that's where it is. It is kind of a term of endearment. So I think we've kind of warmed the idea of it. So we'll help you out. If we just start using bullshit on a regular basis, it's really not that bad of a word.
I like it. Hey, no BSers, I love Laramore's men's and women's designer clothing. It's time for you to take your look to the next level. Laramore's is the place to make it happen for you. How do I know? Because they've helped me for years. You talk about combining professionalism and style. That's what happens when you go with Laramore's. You can shop online at laramores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. She's going to call on Laramore's now to get a sponsorship. She wrote that down early.
Yeah, she's over there taking notes.
I really am.
She's like, no bullshit.
I know.
Laramore's. I used to work with them. I know who's somebody there.
She'll be Tom Michael. You're not allowed to cut. Well, you can spend with both of us. You should spend more on podcasts. That's actually
right.
The truth.
Right.
Truth is, it shouldn't be mutually exclusive. This is a big opportunity for advertisers. So we're with John and Rachael, the co-hosts of your Jagoff podcast. Give us what you think is the main big idea that if someone, because just like our show has some confusion with your name of your show and your blog and your platform, it's what I call it, the No BS platform, because I do keynotes and I do 3-hour workshops for C-suite groups and also have the blog and the show. What's the big idea if you had only 10 words to explain to someone what you do and what their takeaway should be about your company? And you can ponder it.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It can be more than 10 too. I mean, I just said 10 as if it's 12, I'm not going to stop you.
Right.
Well, I won't hit the bullshit, but you go past 10.
Oh,
Love it.
I was wondering. I saw it sitting there like
I
we
was
didn't
gonna
do
hit
we
it,
didn't
but I
do
wasn't
anything to
sure.
trigger it. Like
Yeah.
I was
You
trying to
did
think,
not
what can we do to trigger it?
anything to trigger.
You know, for us, I think Jagoff Media is a media company in that we're videos, we're storytelling, we're a podcast, we're social media, and we can help anybody do that in a very unique way. And one of the things I think we're doing is,
You're over.
yeah. One of the things I think we're doing is we're setting traditional media on its side because we're able to do what they're able to do at lower cost with a more dedicated, as you know, a more dedicated. If you're listening to a podcast, you're a more dedicated consumer than someone listening to the radio.
When you listen to a podcast, you listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like pretty much 90% of the people. Like I like the Dan Le Batard show. And so I listen to that. And when I leave the car, it's on my phone, but when I get back in, it just starts up and I listen to till that episode's over. And I think that's what people do with my show and your show. You tend to listen. Now, if your show's an hour, I might only listen to 18 minutes when I was cooking or something, and then I would listen to 30 when I'm jogging. But that's the difference between, you know, people will say, like I've had people say about sponsoring, and then they'll say, well, what's your cost per thousand, or what's this or what's that? And I say, I don't think we should be talking, because I don't do this so much for the revenue, because there's all kinds of reasons why I do it. The first reason I did it was I just felt there's all these stories that go untold. So I like to let people just go. And that's not, there's no vehicle for that in this region, in my opinion. So that person will say, what's this or what's that? And I say, when somebody runs an ad on an AM station or the Fan or an FM station, you know, if it's KDK or if it's the Fan or whatever, that ad's gone. But your show, someone can listen to 3 weeks from now of the No BS show. And if I'm on your show at some point, someone can listen to that a month later. So if someone's talking like that old media mindset, I just don't even go any further. I just go, it's not worth it. I'm going to beat my head on the wall.
Well, it's often contradictory because the word longevity is thrown out so often. And yet, when you think about a podcast, how much more longevity can you get? Meaning from the negative if they're not understanding what that is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't let her off the hook, Dave. Make her answer the question.
Yeah. So what's your 10 words?
Don't
Get ready with the button.
What's your 10 words? Because he took 47.
Ish. Yeah. That's fine. Well, you know, it's still stumping because, like we said, we're trying to figure out what's going on this business card. And I think it's just such a different, I think it's something like a niche media company that can execute everything from, like you said, videos to mainstream or live stream to podcasts and marketing and more.
So when you say videos, do you mean, though, you're going to go out and shoot a commercial, or do you mean videos where you're there doing live stuff?
So it's both. So with our marketing, and we aren't your conventional media company at all. I mean, first of all, it's two of us. The whole reason that we're doing it is we don't want that conventional go to an office, punch in 9 to 5 kind of thing, because those aren't our lives, right? And I think that's what makes us the happiest, right? Is that we kind of control how that works. That's number one. We feel that we're real. We're realists. We understand that the certain companies who have existed for a long time who are getting $5,000 to $10,000 a month, again, they're doing their thing and they're figuring it out. But we're getting to the nitty gritty of people who need it for multiple reasons, right? With multiple budgets. So let's be realistic about it. So we have EMS clients who have no clue what social media is, that we've had to kind of, as you say, trial and error, get in. We start a media plan that includes social media. And then we back up and go, wait a second, they don't even have a following to start. So where do we start to gain the attention, right? So what we're noticing is there's some video components where we can do videos that are explaining who they are, in the EMS world, at least, where it's sometimes as simple as voiceovers and visuals, that we can edit ourselves. We also implore the help of 321 Blank, who they do a great job as well of doing more of the editing and things like that. Then we have this other part that's videoing that is kind of our thing, whether we're doing a red carpet, whether we're doing the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, some kind of outreach, anything that's encompassing those kinds of like nonprofit things where we're getting out there on video as personalities and saying, hey, this is why you need to raise awareness for XYZ. So there's kind of two different components that we feel, because as you know, visual is everything. And I don't know if you get this, but even with the podcast, we'll get people just at our 100th episode who we thought knew us, and they're like, just watched your podcast last week, and we're like, wonder where we were.
Yeah,
you know,
you don't watch a podcast.
You don't watch it.
Yeah.
So we're standing there perplexed, and we kind of are laughing because they're saying our video teasers that will say, hey, catch us at wherever, or our montage of photos is what they think the podcast is. So sometimes, you know, it's not all the time, but so we are constantly trying to educate that as well.
And the video, you know, the iPhones, well, I have an iPhone, but the smartphone has created this thing where, for instance, when we do an appearance or we get a chance to interview somebody important, we don't wait for a video crew to get there. We do it on an iPhone and we edit it right there, such as our line management or our appearances things. We'll walk around and interview everybody, and then I'll go sit in the corner with headphones on and edit it and put it up there. So the videos can be full video production, like the Willy Wonkowski type thing. And
it could be impromptu, like we just interviewed the bishop on Saturday. Microphone drop. We interviewed the bishop like that at Mass. And it was great. John went to Mass and everything. Like, we looked at each other like, who shows up?
I can't even hit the button right now because that'd be bad.
True. But I mean, like, it's stuff like that. He'll say, I have Mr. Microphone with me. And we're thrilled because that's exactly what he'll do. We'll get the interview and he'll go sit in the corner and kind of get it edited and spliced and ready
throw
to
it
go.
up there. So the video is, because video is so important at this point, why not use it? You know, I had a chance to, I was in the same room as Dusty Baker, you know, hated manager by the Pirates fans, right? You know, I'm like, well, you know, everybody hates you. He goes, well, let's talk about it. So we sit there and I selfie video my iPhone and we get an interview with Dusty Baker, all because of what the technology allows. So the video component is varied, I think, to answer your question for sure.
So it serves a multi-purpose, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
we hate being on video.
We went completely off format because this is two podcasters, which I wanted to do. I didn't want to follow our normal.
We have to figure out what we're going to do when you come on our podcast. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with
It'll be great. We'll come up with something creative. But I do want to ask one question, just because I think you've already touched on a few with some of the things you do creatively and the way you guys are do-it-yourselfers. One of the questions I ask every guest, and it gets great things for our listeners, is what's a tool that you use to help you become more productive or to help you communicate better? So it can be like one early guest talked about how he uses SEMrush to evaluate his website against his competitor's website. Another person talked about their Asana or whatever their project management, cloud-based project management was. Some people talk about Evernote, and other people talk. One person that was on, a recent guest, said a great one. She said that every week she gives her board email with 3 to 5 point updates. She says it's never more than like 80 words. It's like 5 sentences. And she said it changed the game for her because she just was giving her board and her employees a slightly different, an email update every week. Nothing formal, just saying, here's what happened this week. And she said the clarity within the organization amongst employees and amongst board was huge. So it can be anything like that. So it's a tool that helps you become more productive or helps you communicate better. So I'm going to let you have a little bit of time and make her go first, since you've gone first.
I have the answer on this one. I definitely have the answer.
I really do want to know what
you get to go
Let
first
me let him
again.
go first.
Because it has happened since we brought Rachael on, actually, is we used to email show notes back and forth and emails and back and forth. And then the producer would get it. Then the producer would make some changes, whatever. We went to use Microsoft 365 and we use OneDrive. And so the show notes are the show notes. Everybody can pull them down off of one place, decrease the number of emails to go back and forth, as well as we set up the show notes for today's podcast, if we're interviewing you, to in the format where it looks then like the outcome notes. All we have to do is put the time codes in, because we always list little notes and links of everybody, what everybody's talked about. So Microsoft OneDrive, for me, has been a godsend as far as how we communicate through our producer, our executive producer, and Rachael and myself, for sure.
Now, who are those? How did you land those two? Is the person you've been mentioning from the beginning about the blog? Is it Dan? Is that the one?
Oh, no, Dan's
just our go-to.
Dan's our go-to web guy.
So when did you land an executive producer? And
Well, I guess that's odd nomenclature. That's what we call them. But the talent network here in Pittsburgh has what's called the Pittsburgh Podcast Network. And they started, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And when Jim Crenn was off of WDVE, he started a podcast, and that kind of started it rolling there. So they built a little studio out there at the Talent Network in Moon Township. And Frank Murgy and Dave Settlemeyer, they do this. They have this studio, and they have people come in and record podcasts.
And that's when we decided we're never going back.
Yeah, right.
Not because of them. We love them.
So they have a guy that sits, like you had a guy come in and set up your thing. They have a guy who comes in and sets up all the
notice
microphones.
we say thing because we don't know.
Yeah. And then when we go go on location, same thing. They set up our thing, not like we're divas, but they know it. Like I kind of know it, but I don't know it.
It's a confidence thing.
So there's a producer, and then Frank is kind of the guy that oversees all of the podcasts on the network.
So we show up as like a little entourage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small limousine.
I share
Man.
I share your thoughts there because I'm always frightened that something's going to go wrong. And I know I did it on my own a number of times, like the first 50 episodes, I was doing everything myself, but I was frightened every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like now I'm like, I want to make sure there's someone else so I don't have to.
And we have a backup for our backup. Like he'll call Dan, who's our, like he's become my guy too. Like we joke that we high five in the middle of the night at some point because like I have 3 children in school and I go to bed sooner than he does. And he's up until whatever time, but I get up early. So there's about an hour, what did we decide? An hour and a half time frame that we're not dealing with something
like 23-hour coverage.
23-hour coverage, yeah. And so he'll say, I'll email Dan because Dan's an early riser. It'll be like 4:30 and I'll be like, hey, Dan, what's going on with blah, blah, blah. And like he'll answer and then John will catch on once he's up an hour later. And then if Dan's not available, we have TJ. And if we don't have TJ, then we consulted my brother as a third.
So that's all like website stuff, and then on the podcast stuff,
music,
you know, we have. It makes it sound like we're this big company. We're not. We're just very fortunate to have the right connections in the right places because I have been, you know, when we were getting ready to record our first podcast at Light Up Night at Dave DiCello's store with the mayor coming and everything else, I'm like, I'll panic. If one wire doesn't work, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So we hired a guy to come and help us record it. So, but then eventually, you know, so we have a guy, you know, we have a website guy, we have a MailChimp guy, and it's not like we have this staff. We're just, we pull favors and we send gift cards out on a regular basis.
We do.
And thank you emails.
Yeah, thank goodness.
But it is kind of nice, as you know, when we go on site, you're setting up a speaker, we're running wires, and we're trying to get oriented as the guests are coming in. You know, if it's at a porch, we're saying hi to the people that own the porch. We're making sure the food gets there, the prizes are getting there. And I
think because we're customer service driven, right? Customer satisfaction more so driven, that becomes our role. And I think it's such an important role to have that you do need that backup, that reinforcement and that production backbone, you know, to kind of make it work.
Yeah. And our 100th podcast is really kind of a perfect testament to that because we were joking, you know, that we were like at a wedding where we were saying hi to everybody.
People just kept coming in. We were so fortunate.
Thank you for coming. In the meantime, the sound people were checking out all the sound things and making sure the video is going on. So we had a role where we were very appreciative that people came and paid to do it, right? So we have a role, and I think that we both have high touch personalities. Yeah. So I don't know. Did that answer your question?
That definitely answers the question.
Is that like shut up?
You're like, shut up.
So now the next question is a question about questions. Were there any questions you thought I'd ask that I didn't?
I think you asked really good questions.
Yeah, I thought,
I have to say. Yeah. Like
you.
journalistic questions. Like I could relate, brother.
Are you
you gotta see.
Rachael wants to hire you to be her co-host on the Jagoff podcast.
I'm actually gonna hire you to help promote the No BS show.
You got it.
I'm completely serious. Like, I don't think there's any competition.
No, not at all.
100%.
It's completely different audiences.
I completely agree with you. You know, there are so many good podcasts in Pittsburgh, and they're all a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't there be a family of podcasts?
I mean, there's some overlap, but for the most part, I'm going entrepreneur, C-suite, VP of marketing, and you're going
We're not.
You're going everybody.
You're
going everybody. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's not much competition, but I love the ideas that you were throwing out, and I'm serious when I say, like, I think we've not promoted it much. It's grown organically. It's been great. I love the show. I'm pleased with it. But I did it altruistically. I really did because I felt it was going to help me talk to people and get their stories out. But I also knew it was going to help my confidence because I have a radio background. When I was a teenager through my 20s, was always reading radio. Plus, I had my own DJing business. So I knew this played to something I thought was a strength.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. I'd be saying, Rachel got a big old butt.
Oh, yeah. I love that you said that, though, because that's my go-to. Don't look.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
That's so How's that?
No, that's awesome.
So cool.
Because we had TJ the DJ on for our 100th episode from CBS, and every time we say TJ the DJ, I go, wiki. He's like, Rachel, enough. So
I wish there was video of this podcast because when you said, Rachel, got to be, everybody's hands went up.
We all did
it.
Because we're old.
But that song, though, man, whenever I was
that was it, right?
That was it. They climb up on top of the bar with the wireless mic. I was like the first DJ to get a wireless mic. It was a big deal. I spent $350 on it, so I was the shit. I was like going around, that.
That is.
Oh, we have to figure out what podcast to have him
I
on.
don't
Like we
know.
have to go
Soon.
dancing. We have to get
Yes.
a DJ with a disco ball or something. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
remember when we were supposed to promote Le'Veon Bell's rap career?
Yeah.
And we were trying to figure out how we were going to do that event because we are so not that realm at all. But we were like, oh, well.
We'll figure
and they
it
were
out.
laughing. They were like, we cannot wait to see you two like put that on. We were like, we got this.
Well, that's all for now. So thanks for being on the first
Yeah.
time. We'll get you back on another time. And if you want to get me on yours,
Oh, yeah,
love it.
we're doing
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
I'll DJ it for you.
Oh, yeah.
To our listeners, thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show, brought to you by Larimer's Men's and Women's Designer Clothing. Free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories. Rachel's coming over to the store now to try and sell Tom Michael. Get more online. You can get online at larimores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. Tom, she's on her way. She already left. Visit masssolutions.biz for show notes plus additional marketing and messaging resources. Sign up for the No BS Marketing Weekly Update to receive timely, valuable ideas to improve your marketing and transform your message. To sign up, visit masssolutions.biz. Don't be a jagoff. Sign up today and you'll receive a No BS Marketing limited edition shot glass.
Holla.
You guys both get a little gift.
You know what?
Remind me
We'll
on
put
the way
it-
back. We have a
If
gift
they
for
sign
you.
up, we'll make some winner a Jagoff T-shirt. We'll give you a Jagoff
it's a
T-shirt.
great
to give
Ooh,
somebody
that's much bigger than a No BS Marketing
else.
shot
One of those,
glass.
we'll get that.
Do it.
All right, so you got to sign up today, and we'll check on that, and you'll get the shot glass and the
Yep.
T-shirt.
Yep.
Okay. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea, and build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS. Thanks for joining us for the No BS Marketing Show, brought to you by Larimer's Men's and Women's Designer Clothing. Free shipping, free returns. Shop men's and women's designer clothing, shoes, accessories, jewelry, and more online at larimores.com or in-store downtown Pittsburgh. Visit masssolutions.biz for show notes, plus additional marketing and messaging resources like our No BS Marketing Weekly Update. Sign up and receive timely, valuable ideas to improve your marketing and transform your message. Again, visit masssolutions.biz. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions.